This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to convene the Tuesday, June 27, 2023 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to ask for the approval of the Fire Commission meeting held on May 23rd, 2023.
So moved.
Second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Chief's report.
Good evening. I'll start with alarms as we normally do and work our way into it from there. So 2022 at this time we were at 2,550 alarms. As we sit here today, we're at 2,302 alarms. Our last fire commission meeting was on May 23rd, so the below stats I provide you will cover a time period of May 23rd until yesterday, June 26th. So in that period of time, we had 13 intercepts for our ALS services, 27 incident responses to the highway, 133 incidents in which just an ambulance responded and no fire resources, and 151 incidents which were occurring simultaneously at the same time. And as I've provided the last several months, I'll provide you with a breakdown of the incidents that were occurring, the dates they were occurring. You'll see as normal, there's no rhyme or reason. It's not weekdays, it's not weekends, it's not particular daytime hours. It's all over the place. Regarding our budget, at this point in time, we're at 97.8% spent for our budget. With only a couple days left of the fiscal year, I do fully intend to provide a balanced budget for this coming year. We will not be over. We had to make some adjustments towards the end of the year to make sure that, in other words, we didn't spend some lines to make up some other lines that were over, and we want to make sure that the town overall can provide a balanced budget. I know that was important to Mike Frieda this year, and so we held off on some lines, and you'll see that in your report. There's some substantial money left over in some of the discretionary lines that we have, and we chose not to use any of it. I just hope that that's reflected in future budget requests. And unfortunately, as we move from fiscal year to fiscal year, we sometimes forget the state that we were in, and we look at a line and we say, oh well, 2 years ago it wasn't spent. We just need to remember that things weren't spent this year on that promise of delivering a balanced budget. It by no means should it mean that we don't need the funding that we're allotted. Again, some of the things that continue to plague our budget from this past year that caused some overages is significant increases in the contractual, like the staffing line, which we've talked about. We seem to always talk about, but significant sick leave and significant absences from work. And as I'll explain shortly, that doesn't seem to have changed too much for this coming year that we're in. We are still leasing the pumper at $3,000 a month, which was an unbudgeted expense, and we've been doing that now for several months, and we will carry that expense until the arrival of 2 new apparatus, which I'll cover later on. But just keep in mind it's $3,000 a month. We also had 2 of our admin vehicles go down. With just those 2 alone, we're over $17,000 in repairs that were not planned for. When I keep asking for admin vehicles every single year and they break, I need to be able to repair them, and so that was $17,000 to keep 2 of them running. That's almost the cost of one of the vehicles. So we really need to start looking at a replacement plan for these vehicles in order to stop incurring those types of unexpected maintenance fees.
Quick question about those vehicles. Do we
Yep.
have any idea how old they are or how much mileage they have on them?
So mileage I don't have, but I can give you ages. Yeah, I mean, let me just pull something up here. So The admin vehicles, again, are split between the chief officers and the individual assigned to the fire marshal's office. They range anywhere from the youngest being 5 years old to the oldest being 9 years old.
And how many total do you have? Six.
In total, six. It doesn't. That includes a new one that we have coming. So this number I gave you reflects 5 of that age span. The new one, it has not arrived yet.
So, you mentioned that it's unexpected. Anytime you have a vehicle that's 9 years old or 5 years old, that is an emergency vehicle, we're gonna expect to incur costs.
Sure.
And, for that to be excluded from our budget year after year, it just doesn't make any sense. So, again, during next year's workshop, when we are going to be criticized regarding a particular line item for repairs, whatever it might be, we need to keep that in mind. A 9-year-old vehicle that is an emergency vehicle that has significant mileage, over 100,000 miles, I'm sure, it's just beyond its lifetime. If it was a police car, it would have been gone.
We have a police car that was gone, and that's one of the ones that I'm counting.
Well, that's exactly right.
I don't think that people necessarily value, when we see admin cars, they want to be dismissive of it. They want to think, oh, well, admin don't need. Listen to me. You want your chiefs going to these incidents in our surrounding towns and in our own town. You need that. We don't have shift commanders in vehicles, and we need to be able. Even if we did, we still have a need to be able to respond to the towns that our firefighters are asked to go deliver mutual aid to, so we can make sure that your North Haven firefighters are safe operating outside of town.
Couple quick questions on that. So we have one it's a police. One of the 5 that you told us about is a police car,
Yep.
an old police car. But can you use that as an admin vehicle for? No. Okay. So how many do we have that you can actually use? The chief or deputy chief going? You've got 3
3
that
with
can go.
one additional on the way whenever it gets you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, Pat, those are Jen, those are the vehicles that have all the equipment in them.
Yeah.
So the command boards, all of the necessary equipment that the chiefs need to command a scene. The vehicles that are borrowed from the police department are an SUV of some sort or a car. So there's little or no equipment in that vehicle. So yes, it might have a lights and siren, but it doesn't have anywhere close to the capacity to hold the equipment that each of our chiefs require.
Right, and that's what I was trying to figure out. How many out of the 5 that you gave were
Right.
actually? So 3. Okay.
So that covers some of the unexpected expenses, and we can cover some of the more personnel issues that have driven that number up this past year under executive session. Since our last meeting, we've collected just over $84,000 in permit fees. That brings our total for this year for fire fees just over $668,000 this fiscal year. It was projected at $500,000, and so we exceeded projections there by $168,000. This next week, I expect there to be some additional revenue as well, so it's not a closed out number. Our paramedic billing stands to make up some ground still. So there's been an issue with our billing company that we have for our EMS billing. Long story short, essentially there's a lot. I just want you to think about a lot of moving pieces. So between the hospital that has some say in our billing and software, to the billing company itself, to some federal standards called NEMSIS, which require some things. When there was a change made in some of the software several months ago, we found that our billing company was no longer getting the bills. And so we've got some ground to make up there, and that happened the same time that we were bringing in DC Bisson and getting him trained and up to standard for how to be able to check all of this. That's what he's discovered, and so I don't know how much is there. Nobody's told me from finance, but I know that it's nowhere near the $90,000. But we've got the means to be able to make up some ground, and we've got a year from the time that we incurred the service to bill for the expenses, and so that continues to be a work in progress.
So we've got incurred but not reported.
Correct.
And received, basically.
Yep.
So, Paul, of the 500,000 in the budget initially, what percentage of that was allocated, would be allocated to the department?
0.
Zero?
Yeah,
No,
so
some of it
on
is.
paper, zero. We've made a case for the full-time and part-time inspectors, investigators to come out of that, which is 150, although it doesn't show that in paper. That's been our argument
Yes.
all along. So 150 of the 668, you can argue, has been allocated. And I think that's important to know is this is still new revenue. This is revenue that's still
Yeah.
only 6 or 7 years old. That was never brought to the town before until I came to the town and I says, at a Board of Finance meeting, and I said, I'd like to pursue this.
So of the 168 that's above the 500 projection, do you get any of that money? Okay.
No.
So it's the two salaries.
Yeah,
Off the
a part-time
books.
and a full-time salary is all that we really make a distinction to. And again, that's not on our budget, it's just in our conversations, right?
It's no, if you looked at the town budget, you would not be able to see, because it just goes back into the general fund. It doesn't show anywhere in the fire department budget.
Pat, that's been,
But, no, I know, but why is that? I know,
That's
but,
been a conversation that we have had throughout the years, and the Board of Finance continues to make reference to the building department or you
yeah,
know, whatever revenue that comes in from town hall or whatever. That all goes into the general fund. It doesn't go to the respective departments. Our argument is, well, money's coming to the police department to stay with the police department. If money's coming to the fire department, why can't they stay in the fire department? So we've never gotten a straight answer as to why we can't do that. It's just that it has to go into the general fund.
And the grants for public works get
Go to Public
minused
Works.
out of the public works budget. So when you look at their budget, they're minus line items that then offset costs because they've used grants. That doesn't happen
Correct.
for the fire department
That's
either. It's an uneven way of showing the budget
bookkeeping.
and bookkeeping. Yeah.
So, have you ever seen a list of revenue generated by the different departments?
Other than what is in the budget for income, no.
But by department? No, okay.
Moving on real fast in terms of what's impacting our budget as we sit here today in the current fiscal year and what will impact our budget moving forward. And so I have, again, we can get into detail shortly, but I've had one member on extended sick leave since April 28th. And so we have to incur that expense. I've had one member on military leave almost the entire fiscal year of last year. And that will carry through for the next several months into later on this calendar year. So that, again, is unplanned, unexpected, unbudgeted for leave. And I have another member who unfortunately is out on injury leave, and that injury occurred on June 23rd, and I expect that to be long-term as well. Otherwise, the fire marshal's office, is there anything further on the budget before I continue to the fire marshal's office?
I'd just like to say that, being at 97.8% spent right now, considering all that we've gone through and taking into consideration that, some of those expenses, some of the costs have not been incurred, I think you've done a marvelous job considering what you just said to us. The impact of the budget this year with the sick leave, the military leave, it's creating the budget at the beginning of a fiscal year is at best a guess in many of these categories. I mean, certainly many of the categories exactly where it's going to be, but there are certain categories that are just a guess because we can't tell how many folks are going to get sick, how many are going to be injured, how many will be on military leave for long periods of time. So I think this year we've done quite well, and kudos to you and your staff.
Chairman, I think that thank you, and I think something that we just need to remember that we should reflect on is up until right now, as we sit here this month, essentially, we've always staffed every shift with exactly the same number of staff that we need to run the shift. And so every time that there's an absence, there's an overtime expense. We are at the point now where we have two shifts, that are +1, meaning that we staff it one more over the minimum staffing. And so that's going to start to have an impact on some of these long terms, but that also depends on, did that long-term injury, is this long-term illness occurring on the same shift the person's assigned to?
Right.
I can't just switch shifts on people, that's against a bargaining agreement. So we need to be mindful of that moving forward. There is certainly something that needs to be considered moving forward is staffing more firefighters per shift than we need minimum. And I'm aware of departments out there that because it is such a cost savings, that there are unions that have negotiated for there to be a max roster number so that the cities or towns don't flood the shifts with too many people so that there's never overtime. So it is effective, and this is exactly why there's cities and towns that have that in there as well as a max number, not just a minimum.
Which shifts are the ones that have the do you know?
I don't know offhand, no.
Okay.
No, because I don't have the names here. I just
Okay.
have the that way I don't accidentally read the name to you. I don't put the name.
Well, yeah, no, I was looking at the divisions. I was
Yeah.
wondering if you knew which ones had 11, but
You know, Chief, during the workshop, you articulated very clearly the benefit of having 1 or 2 plus per shift and the kind of dollar value savings as a result of having those 2 additional firefighters per shift. And we're going to begin to measure that value, if you will, or that savings as this year progresses, considering for the first time you were able to have a +1 on 2 of the shifts. So I think it'll be an interesting an interesting dollar value interpretation of what those savings will be as this year progresses. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I'm sure the Board of Finance is interested in seeing it as well, because they were very skeptical about whether or not there would in fact be savings adding the additional firefighter because of the cost of the firefighter and the benefits and so on and so forth.
They're going to have to take my word because unfortunately there's no budgetary way of showing that other than me counting every single day that
Right.
that division, that shift that had an extra person, had 1 person off, it doesn't matter, and we saved that. There's not going to be a budget number that you can look at and they're going to get a report of. It's going to be something where we're going to have to manually go back and look for those occurrences and say, we captured this much savings on this day, this much savings on this day, and then provide that number, over the course of several months.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of, I just want to get a sense, because I was noticing what you just mentioned a while ago, that there were some line items that were underspent, obviously to offset. So I just wanted to find out what some of these things were. Total longevity, what is total longevity?
That's a stipend in the labor contract.
Okay. Total EMT, is that a stipend for
Yep.
EMT certification? EMT training, that was close. And then I'll just go through each one, but the water and the gas and the oil, electricity, those were all over, but we don't have any control over that, right? That just goes through,
I don't even see the bills.
okay,
It goes out of my budget. But that's a product of all those rate increases
Yes.
that we all see at our individual houses. And so that's why there was an increase in each one of those line items for next year.
okay. Yeah. Equipment and supplies, civil,
Yep, that's supposed to support emergency management and the EOC, and so that was a line that was purposely underspent.
okay. Building maintenance and repair, we've talked about that one before, that's, wasn't over, which is something that I constantly complain about. Total training. Is that part of the,
Which line or which page number is that?
it's on page 5.
There's a couple of training lines. I want to make sure I reference the correct one.
It's under total dues and expenses. It was one of the ones that looked, it's like only 67%.
It's the third one down.
Yeah, sorry, I went the wrong direction on my pages. Yeah, so that is fire training, elective fire training, so courses that we send our staff to,
Okay.
or that we provide in-house.
Chief, Jen brought up a point regarding repairs. Has the issue with purchases under a certain dollar figure been resolved so that you have the discretion to go ahead and have repairs done to the overhead door if it doesn't work without having gone through the finance department?
We'll see. So
So I take that as a no.
next week is the exact time period, the first week of July is when we start pulling POs out for the various vendors that we know we're going to have work for. There's no question that things are gonna break, things have to get serviced,
Right.
you know, and so, we'll see, what happens over the next, probably 2 weeks, and go from there. I don't have an answer back, in writing.
Because I'm under the impression that we received a verbal yes
Correct.
from both Mike Frieda and Rich Monaco that was going to be allowed. So I will be hugely disappointed if that's not the case.
I'm sorry, I got a couple more. This total paramedic QM, there's something wrong with this line item because it says original appropriation 0, revised 0, and then it has a year-to-date expenditure, which doesn't match the available budget.
Where are you, Jen?
It's right underneath that total training.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is a line that, the finance director has elected to take, some of the expenses for the EMS building out of. And so essentially what was happening was out of the EMS revenue that we were receiving, we were subtracting the service costs for that billing company, and he claims that we can't do that in the same line. So he needed to start to pull the expenses out of a different line in order to reflect that. And so that is something else that is that was not that I did not have in my budget, but that's been reflected in my budget.
Okay. And then total fire CAD, that's only 38%.
Yep.
What's the,
We held off on some upgrades to the CAD system this year, and so forth.
okay. And it
some,
looks,
some of the radios, some of the iPads that work with the CAD, we held off on replacing some of those items.
okay. And
Again,
it-
I wanted to make sure that the budget was balanced.
yeah,
You know, because the contractual place and staffing line is so high this year.
yeah, no, I understand, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to understand
Yep.
what the things were and,
Yeah,
what the offsets were.
Sure.
And it looks like the volunteer association line is back closer to what it should have been, because wasn't that one that she had like nothing taken out of there?
Correct, because it's been reporting to the building line as a subset of the building line for all those years, which is part of the reason why the building line was so skewed for the
Right.
last several years. Somewhere in the background for Munis, it was pulling it from the wrong parent line, if you will.
And that's why those two look better now, it doesn't look over anymore,
Right, correct.
okay.
And this
Um,
reflects the 3 stations instead of the 4, correct?
For the volunteers,
Yeah.
for the because nothing changed for the last fiscal year. Yeah.
Coming forward.
Yeah.
And then what are the total doctor's fees?
So that is the physicals that the staff get sent for. That's not closed out yet. That's one of the ones that we still know there's going to be some billing coming for because our staff typically get sent for the annual physicals in April and May,
Okay.
and so that billing hasn't caught up yet. So there won't be quite as much there, but it won't be a lot.
Okay,
Chief, the upgrades of the CAD, considering we upgraded the system as far as the software is concerned, does the the equipment that's in the CAD system communicate with that software correctly, or
Everything communicates with
everything's
CAD.
okay with that? So with the upgrades in the CAD, we'll be able to have the reporting from the CAD, or does it come off of it?
Everything
Where
comes
does it
from the
come
CAD.
from? Comes from the CAD?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of times and address, it comes from the CAD, yeah.
Okay. So the outdated equipment that's in our apparatus now is not having an impact on getting data at this point?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay,
Any
I
other
went through 'em- I went through all my little
You
things.
did good. You did good.
I was like, I'm not sure what this is,
Yeah.
and
You did good.
So that finishes the budget side. If we want to go over the fire marshal's office side, I can point you to a few things that were included in your packet. You can see the total number of inspections, and you can see right now, just last month alone, 16 different plan reviews, 50 different permits that were issued, and we continue to track the records requests. Remember, this is something that we
Yep.
never had before, because quite frankly, we didn't have really any records. There were no inspections being performed, so there were no records to produce. And 25 different public inquiries, people asking general fire prevention questions on, I want to do a build here, add-on here, that type of thing. You can see the fires that we had last month and the various associated causes. One thing I just want to bring your attention to is, if you look at the top of the inspections by occupancy property use, one thing you'll see is that go back to the heading that says 1/1 of 2022 to 5/31 of 2022, and you should see a total inspections there of 133. The 133 appears, it's pretty, I don't know if your packet's stapled or not, but I'm only 4 pages in or so.
What page are you on, Chief?
It says page 2 on the bottom, but there's a lot of different page 2s, because these are different reports that we staple together for you.
Yep.
So, my point being is that from January 1st of 2022 until May 31st of 2022, in total last year, the department had done 133 inspections. As we sit here this last month alone, from May 1st to May 31st, we did 79 alone last month. So having the additional assistance in that office with the part-timer is making a huge difference in terms of the number of inspections that we can get to. And remember, inspections are not just going out there and spending a short period of time and coming back. Inspections, there's scheduling, there's coordinating with the various parties that need to be present, whether that's landlords, tenants, property owners, property representatives, going to the site, sometimes researching different questions that might come up, and then documenting. So at the very minimum, an inspection is an hour. The simplest of buildings, a one-room place, is an hour minimum. And of course, if it's larger than that, there's that much more documentation, that much more research. If you can visualize for a minute the code books are quite substantial. There's a ton of codes that can apply based on different occupancies. So every time that our inspectors are out at these various locations, there's going to be different restrictions and requirements of a church and of a restaurant, of a school, and of an office building, and so forth. So that's the fire marshal's report. If you have anything further there, I can certainly answer it, but otherwise I have nothing further for the chief's report.
Any further questions of the chief regarding his report?
no, just, well, a couple of quick comments. The comparison that you did of from 2022 to May of 2022 were 133, and then the same time period this year, I mean, the total amount was 345 inspections, so, I mean, it's significantly
It's much
higher, yeah.
Certainly is.
The other question I had was just around the fire, looking at the number of fires year to date compared to 2022, and
Yeah.
they're also significantly higher.
Yep, absolutely.
Any idea why? I know last month it was there was quite a bit, and you had thought it was because of the dry weather.
Yeah, no, it's just getting busier. Overall, it just seems, and again, this is why we keep pointing to the fact that there's this philosophy out there that most of what we do is medicals, and that's just not the case. It's about 50-50 for us. There's a lot of fires that occur, and so this is a reflection of all those.
Okay.
So here, no further questions of the chief. We'll move on to the correspondence. So Chief, have you received any correspondence?
Other than the regular routine emails, I received nothing. I'm going to pass out one letter of resignation from a volunteer, which you're welcome to read. And we can discuss that more in executive session, but I have no correspondence.
Any commissioners receive any correspondence?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to old business of the fire department.
Old business, I would like to cover a couple of things. The aerial truck one that was involved in a motor vehicle accident has been returned to service as of the last week. It was out for about 7 weeks probably for repair in total, and so that left us with the one reserve truck in town, which we're thankful that we have. Because that would have been a long time to go without an aerial truck in town. So we are back to 2 aerial trucks, although the reserve now has a number of repairs that we need to work on. But we're really trying to balance our apparatus and not have too many apparatus out of service at any given time, because we just don't have the depth of apparatus. We are literally putting off repairs right now on apparatus, waiting for one of the ones that we have in the shop right now to come out so that we can send something else, because we're down to just nothing left in town. There is quite a bit of time over the last few weeks where there's been one engine in West Ridge and one engine only in Northeast, and then the 2 engines that Career have in a truck. That's it. It's barely enough for a fire. We hope that's going to change as we continue to just wait for the delivery of the 2 apparatus that we have on order. They're expected to be the spring of '24. The engine that was struck on the highway a couple of years ago is back in service.
Oh,
December
no.
of '21, it went back in service. So it was great to have that back.
Wow.
The engine that is a 1987, I've removed from service.
Which one?
It's not even on your list. It's a 1980. It might be, depending on how old of the list you're looking. Yeah, so that's an older list. So a 1987, it should say.
26 years?
Is it?
Was
Yeah.
that the one here that was stationed?
It was in
Yeah.
West
One you and I
Ridge.
wrote in?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So I've removed that from service. You'll still find it in our stations right now. It may serve a purpose down the road for training or something, but it is just not something. We went for that ride quite some time ago, and
Yeah.
it's not something that we can continue to keep around for our fleet. So it's out. So that leaves us with 7 engines, and that includes one of them being a leased engine, the 2 trucks, and the 2 rescues. That's what I have for old business.
Which was the engine that got hit that was on the highway? Was
Let
it-
me take a look.
What year
It was
it?
It's 9. Engine
Yeah,
9.
truck 9, engine 9?
Yep.
Yeah, but you can't go by that anymore because sometimes those numbers change.
It's a 19-year-old.
It-
Oh, you're trying to match it up with that list, Pat?
Yeah.
I'm
I keep
trying.
on calling you Pat. I'm sorry.
That's
Ken.
Oh, I was talking
Oh,
too
okay.
about it. Is there a current list?
Yeah, but it's not gonna reflect what that is. It's going to be 0401. If you see 0401 on there, it's gonna be that one. So it was a 2004 that was there.
Those numbers aren't on here.
2004, which would have been.
And the
I think
assumption
it was
is
the
all
one-
of the bugs and all of the issues
Yes,
are now
it's the
resolved
engine 9
in
on
that.
the list.
It's the assumption.
That's the assumption.
Because that's
And what do we
19 years
have in
old.
the shop now?
It depends on the day.
Okay.
Here's my note. Involved in accident.
And when is the lease ladder truck, when is that going in for repairs? Not the lease one,
reserve?
It literally is, every single day we're balancing our fleet. So what I tell you now could be different tomorrow. So there's, and it was probably already changed since this morning. We're constantly trying.
It's like that game they used to play in New York City.
It really is, which is why I'm hesitant to say anything because I don't.
Yeah.
It's at this moment in time, I might not even be right because the last time I checked on our fleet was at 12 o'clock. Because, you know, the one thing to remember is we look at the CAD, and so their engine may be in service that we call engine 4, and it doesn't say engine 4 on the side, and so that's why we've changed over to what you call lifetime service numbers, the LSN numbers, which is
the one that you just gave.
manufactured.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
the one you just gave to us.
Because
before.
the
Okay.
numbers are changing sometimes year to year in order to keep balancing. Every engine is a little different. You know, don't forget we still have engines in our department that we bought to fit in the fire station.
Right.
So they're super small and underperforming apparatus. So that's not an engine that I obviously want the career staff having to use because it doesn't carry enough equipment on it. So that's why we've gotten away from the engine numbers. You'll see the LSN numbers more.
Okay.
Because that's a number that's always going to stay with that apparatus.
Anything else on the old business, chief?
Nope.
New business.
Can we go back to old business
Yeah.
for 1 minute? Volunteers. Number wise, where are we?
So number wise, we are, and I'm going to go over qualified, so non-probationary members. So we are at 8 at Northeast, and we are at 13 qualified at West Ridge. There is nobody in the works, if you will, at Northeast. There is no probationary members right now, and there are 5 right now in the works at West Ridge. And again, whether or not they all carry through with it to become regular members, we don't know.
Okay. Just one piece of information, and I am happy to sort of take this on as something to deal with, but I was speaking to someone the other day who's had a child that was interested in finding out about how to get involved with the fire department and the Explorer. They didn't know the name for it, Explorers.
Explorers?
And they went to the guidance department, who said they had no information about it. So I don't know if you have anything already, sort of pamphlets or anything, but I'd be happy to go over and
Yeah,
make
that's-
sure that we get kids connected if they're interested,
Sure.
even if they're interested, looking long term as a career opportunity.
Yep. If they call that recruitment hotline, which is the town number, extension 140, we put them in touch with a volunteer who can walk them through the steps and the things necessary. And just for the commission's awareness, I think this goes back to the changeover of personnel that we all experience in our departments. But I personally met with every single guidance counselor at the high school. It was probably pre-COVID now. It was probably right when COVID was starting. And so who knows, the guidance counselor you're referring to may not have been at that meeting. But I have had it in the newsletter a couple of times throughout the
Okay.
school year. So,
There's a business teacher who teaches some course that looks at, I think, health professions, but there might be a way to.
I've spoken during that class before.
Okay.
So we know that there's a gap there, and we're working with the administration, the school leadership to close that gap.
Okay.
New business, chief.
New business, one of the things that was asked for by this commission was if there was any funding or anything available for us to outfit an apparatus to basically serve as a blocking apparatus on the highway. We've checked with the state DOT, there is no funding available whatsoever for anything like that.
And the state isn't providing any dump trucks or
Nope.
utility trucks or anything like that. So,
Nope, nothing.
so we need to keep on putting our apparatus at risk in order to protect our firefighters.
This is a state issue, not a North Haven issue.
Yeah.
You had said that, I think it was in our last meeting, that you were going to start sending two
Yep.
apparatus out to block. How is that going?
Correct. So that we talked about that last meeting. That change probably went into effect about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and so that is in fact occurring. So there are now 2 career engines being dispatched and a volunteer engine being dispatched to the accidents on the highway. And then if the volunteer engine arrives on scene, we are trying to clear one of those career engines pretty much right away. But we needed to make that change as we talked about last month.
Okay.
Good. Good of the department.
Good of the department. Couple of things. We continue to watch some of the paramedics that are talking about dropping their paramedic because they're going to have met their contractual requirement. We can discuss that more in executive session. That's about it. Nothing further for good of the department.
I'd just like to say that the parade participation was very nice. Thank you for the commissioners that participated. It turned out to be a decent day, and I think a good time was had by all. We had a nice representation for our department. So,
Yep, I agree.
thank you to all that participated.
So can we step back? One thing I forgot I wanted to ask about. So we've been talking a lot about staffing, and I know at the budget hearing, Peter Criscola got up and spoke and brought up the thing about the SAFER grant. Can we get an update on what the status is with that? And
Sure, yeah, the SAFER grant's been submitted, and we just wait for the federal government at this point.
how long does it take to?
They're already starting to be awarded. If you were to go on the federal FEMA website, you can see there's some departments that have been awarded already. I'd expect that to go probably through the end of the summer.
So we will know this year before the
We'll
next
know this
budget.
calendar year. I expect us to know this calendar year. The federal government is really unpredictable sometimes, but from everything I'm hearing right now, it sounds like by the end of summer we should actually have some idea where we stand.
And what will it do in terms of staffing? What are we? Is it does it depend on what they approve?
Depends on what they approve.
Okay.
Can you tell us what was requested?
We requested additional staffing on the apparatus and an officer in a car to be able to respond to these incidents of priority, and we'll see where the federal government lands in terms of what they allocate for us, if anything at all.
What was the request? Did amount?
I'd rather not
Oh,
go
okay.
over that.
Okay.
We certainly can talk about it in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Anything else, Jeff?
That's it.
All right. See, there's no one here for public comment, so let's move into executive session. Hear a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I
I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, June 27, 2023 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. We have a motion to be made.
Yes,
Commissioner
Mr. Chairman,
Scala?
I do make a motion to accept Brian Juice Jr. and Brenda Juice as probationary members of Westridge, coming 3 effective immediately.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Is there any further business coming before this commission? Hearing none, I'd like to announce that our next regularly scheduled North Haven Fire Commission meeting will take place,
Hold on. I'll tell you in 1 second. I realized that I put the wrong date on.
I think it was July 29th.
It is July 25th.
July 25th, 2023, here at the Montauk Company 2, 282 Quinnipiac Avenue, North Haven. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.